Go. So we got to start off with a bunch of different definitions, and in order to get us all on the same page, we've got to talk about what statistics really are. So that's the first thing we're going to do for the purposes of this course. We're going to define what statistics are. And as I mentioned yesterday, that oftentimes we have multiple choice questions on tests. These definitions will come up on quizzes and tests, so you're going to have to know them, okay? So, it's the science of conducting studies to collect, organize, summarize, analyze, and draw conclusions from data. That is going to be our working definition for statistics in this course. And I want to place a little emphasis on this, drawing conclusions, okay? One of the things that I want you to get good at in this course is to make conclusions on your own given certain statistics. Oftentimes the media, and we're not going to spend time debating what we think of the media, but I will tell you, and you've seen it, where statistics are used to sway your opinion one way or the other, whether they're based in fact or not, okay? And oftentimes, statistics are manipulated in such a way to force you to think a certain way, because they're trying to maybe collect money or garner support for a certain cause or many other things, and we'll talk about that as we move on through this course. But ultimately, what we want to be able to do is look objectively at the data in front of us and draw our own conclusions, okay? And not let other people do it for us. So that's sort of a key takeaway in this course. Are there any questions? We're really going to spend more time analyzing, organizing, summarizing. We're not going to conduct a lot of, actually we won't conduct any actual statistical studies in here, okay? I'm going to provide all that information for you. Let's talk about some different vocabulary that we need to be on the same page about. First off, variables. Variables you're very familiar with. They aren't very different from your algebra variables, but the variables that we deal with in statistics are more specific than just, like a letter or something like that, okay? Characteristic or attribute that can assume different variables. That's why, or values, excuse me. That's why it's called a variable. It can vary. So oftentimes in a study we talk about the variables that are involved. Time of day, temperature, number of people involved in the study. All those things can change given a specific investigation, and those are variables as a part of a statistical study. Just the same way the value for x can change in any given equation. Next one is data or data. I don't care which way you say it. There's not a right way. Either is fine, and I sometimes switch them up. I don't even know why I do or when I do, okay? The values, they could be measurements, so they could be numerical. They could be observations that the variables can assume. And most of the time, throughout this course, our data will be numerical. Not always. Random variables. It's important with random variables. Their values are determined by chance. That's the random aspect. And randomness in statistical studies is going to play a very large role in the validity of any given study. So the idea of randomness is going to be really important and will be pervasive in this course. Data set, pretty straightforward. The collection of data values. Again, could be numerical, but it doesn't have to be. Seems backwards to define data value when we just use data value in a definition, but that's how the book wanted us to go. Each value in the data set is the data value. Again, we're just trying to get on the same page, speaking the same lingo, using the same vocabulary. So we're all speaking the same language. Let's move on to the different types of statistics that we're going to look at in this first section after we got all the definitions. Are there any questions about any of those things that we just went over? Pretty straightforward. Okay. There's two main areas of statistics that we're going to look at. They are descriptive statistics and inferential statistics. And the names should give away, to some extent, what we're after. I'm going to spend the next couple slides talking about descriptive statistics, and then the next few after that, inferential. Descriptive statistics consists of the collection, organization, summarization, and presentation of data. Okay. Someone has already collected the data, completed a study, and they're displaying it some way, summarizing it some way, presenting it some way. It already happened. Now we're just using a method to describe it. Descriptive. It's based on current data or facts. Inferential statistics. Okay. Root word of inferential is, what is it? What's the root word? Inference. What does inference mean? Did you just say to make an inference? An assumption, a prediction. I heard someone say guess. What else? Hypothesis. Theory. Okay. Yeah, all those things are good. Okay. Generalization is the one word I was looking for. We're going to make a generalization typically to an entire group, entire population. For example, if I polled this class only on what decision Danny should make for his King's Wish, that would be something we could potentially apply to the entire school. We might think that if this class decided we're going to have, I don't know, whatever it is, Danny wants a parking spot, a better parking spot, and everybody agreed that was the best thing, the best use of his wish, we could then poll the rest of the school to see if they wanted to do that, or we could just take our opinion and apply it to the rest of the school. That's taking something from a sample and applying it to the entire population. Okay? I think, and maybe it's just me, but I think most of you would not really appreciate Danny using his wish that way, and we could probably apply the same generalization to the entire population of the school. I'm not trying to pressure you into not doing that, because you can do whatever you want with your wish.
You should do it.
But just saying. I have lots of parking spots actually, but thanks. It's good. I like to walk. The other thing that we talk about, so the population, another definition here, population consists of all the subjects being studied. Okay, most often a study is conducted on a sample of the population because it's impossible, well, not necessarily impossible, but very, very difficult to poll an entire population. It's easier and statistically possible to make a prediction based off of a sample. And we'll get into more of that later. Okay, The sample is the group of subjects from that population. So in the example I was using, you guys are a sample of the entire population of the students of Bishop Furrow High School. You're a small portion of the entire population. So you would be considered the sample in that example. A few other things that we want to add to inferential statistics. Okay, it involves estimating. We talked about making predictions. We talked about making guesses, hypotheses. Okay, there is going to be some uncertainty when we use inferential statistics. Whereas descriptive statistics, it already kind of happened, or it already exists right now. We have it very clearly. Okay, so inferential statistics does involve estimation. Also determines whether relationships exist amongst variables. Makes predictions. Talk about that. And uses a probability chance of an event occurring. And we're going to spend a whole unit on probability. So it talks about the likelihood of something happening. That's what that means. Uses a probability chance of an event occurring. The likelihood something's going to happen. Okay. Inferential statistics gets used all the times during elections. They make predictions. They use statistical information to declare winners of races or outcomes of races. That kind of thing. All right, this is on page 5 and 6 in your book. If you want to take a picture of it right now, you're welcome to. We're going to answer these 6 questions together. Kind of gives us an idea of what this section is all about. So go ahead and take a picture if you want, or screenshot from your book. Part of this is on page 5, part of it is on page 6. It's up to you how you want to get it into your notes. And once you get it situated, go ahead and answer the questions. Typically in homework, I'm going to ask for complete sentences and that kind of thing. For today, just answering these quickly, you can just write your answers in like it's almost like a fill in the blank. No, this is not homework. You actually have a homework assignment, but this is not homework. We're doing this right now. Okay, so get it in there, read through it, answer the questions as best you can, and then we're going to talk about it together. All right, so there's lots of different things going on here. What are the variables? Just raise your hand if you think you know. Carlos.
Grades and student attendance.
Grades and student attendance. Good. How many had that? Anybody have something else they want to add to it? What's the data? Again, raise your hand if you think you know. Someone besides Carlos. Nick, what do you got?
Is it the percentage, like grade percentage?
Grade percentage would be one part of the data, even though they really didn't give it to us. I mean, they sort of did. What else? What's the data? What data do we need to know that they kind of didn't give us that we're kind of relying on here? Huh? How many students? Maybe not how many students, but what about the students?
Work ethic.
Huh? Work ethic might be part of it, but what's the other piece here?
The grades they got.
How many students?
How often they went to class, right? So they didn't really give us the attendance information specifically, but they gave us a range. So that's part of our data there. So we've got grades, we've got attendance percentage. Is this descriptive, inferential, or both? How is it both? Yeah, you could just go ahead and say it.
It's descriptive because they gathered, organized, and it's presented. But it's inferential because it's at the end they make an assumption about all students that the more you attend, the higher the grade. But they use a sample size of fantasy student.
What words here make us think you could apply inferential to it? Yeah. Probably, is that in there? Probably improve. What else? Usually gets used a whole bunch of times. Okay? So there is some descriptive, there is some inferential because of the assumption that you're making moving forward. And we'll get to the conclusion here in a second. What is the population?
All students.
Go ahead.
Are they using all of the students from Manatee, or are they just using a sample from it? Like, I mean, the population could be all students, or it could be all students at Manatee.
Right. I would say that I think you could look at it two ways. And depending, now here's something that you're going to need to be able to do in this class. Because I think you could argue that the population is all students at Manatee. I think you could also argue that the population is all students in college.
Yeah.
If your evidence or your justification is strong enough, I'm willing to accept both. Okay? There's not a lot of information in this example. Right? Obviously in a 5-10 minute example, there's not going to be. So if you made a strong justification for why the population is just the students at Manatee, I would accept that. If you made a conclusion that the population was all college students and the students at Manatee were a sample, I would go with that too. It's going to be based on your argument that you make. Make it persuasive, okay? And then stick with it. Okay? So 5 then kind of piggybacks on 4. If you believe that the students at Manatee were a sample of a larger population, then you would say, yeah, the students at Manatee is a sample. If you believe that all of the students at Manatee Community College are the population, there's likely not going to be a sample. So again, we don't know where they got this data from. There's not a lot of information. So your conclusion that you make just needs to be supported with good evidence or good justification and a well thought out argument, and you're going to be fine. What's the relationship between the variables? Should be pretty straightforward. The more you go to class, better your grades are going to be. Okay? Pretty straightforward. All right, any questions about that? Again, 2 things I want to say. Do the best you can with the information that you have. And then, when you make your arguments, I want them in complete sentences, and I want your justifications and evidence and data to support your conclusion. If there's gray in there, I will find it. You don't want me to find the gray. Be very black and white. Use good supporting evidence. Use a good justification. Use a good argument to make your case, and you're going to be fine.